Welcome everyone to the Late Game, episode 31. My name is Lycan, and with me I have my new co-host, Jeff in Control Robinson. How you doing, Jeff?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. And with us today we have our StarCraft 2 guest, Proxy Wolf. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. It's 5 a.m. for me, so I'm a bit tired, but otherwise pretty good.
I appreciate the passion and you coming on the show and you reaching out actually to come on the show. That was a nice surprise.
Are you up early or up late?
Up late.
Nice.
One of those nights, but it'll be good.
You said you had something like 2 a.m. What was that?
Oh, I've got a World of Tanks cast, but I thought it was going to be like before this, so I was worried about the time, but it's actually going to be like later on today. Like it's going to start at 10 p.m. Korean time, so I've got like a lot of hours before that starts. So I'll be
wow.
fine.
Any other exciting things other than that? Are you going to try to catch some Z's after that before the event?
I'm
sorry, after this.
Oh yeah, after this, definitely going to be catching some Z's, and then I'll definitely be watching the round 4 of Star League before I do my World of Tanks cast. So got a lot of stuff going on today, starting with this early in the morning, but basically late at night at the same time. So a little bit of both.
Awesome. What is World of Tanks like? I've watched like one cast of it, and I really don't. Is it just you set up and then it's like okay and go fight each other?
Really depends on the map. Like there are city maps where all the tanks go really slowly, and you got a bunch of buildings on the way, so you use big heavy tanks that move pretty slowly through the map. And then you've got like larger maps where you've got lighter tanks that are kind of moving around very quickly, and there's a lot of movement going on, and not as much cover to hide in. So you want to have a faster tank. So it really just depends, and they add new tanks all the time, so the meta kind of changes. It's a game that's kind of like StarCraft to a certain extent, to where if you don't know anything about it and you watch it, you feel a little bit lost, a little bit confused. It's very complicated, but as you start to watch it more and play it more, you learn it pretty quickly.
Okay, so as a World of Tanks fan, did the movie Fury do anything for you?
I didn't actually see that movie, so...
What? Oh my god. I mean, I'm not to be that guy that's like, oh, I can't believe you've... Yeah, but it's good, and there's some pretty good tank fight scenes, so maybe if tank fighting is your thing, you might enjoy the movie.
People recommended it to me, so I'll definitely have to watch it eventually.
It was good. So we're gonna kick things off. Let's see. Let's talk the road to Toronto. Right, the talent list was announced, and one of which people will be having is Jeff. Jeff, is there anything you can leak about? Okay. Is there anything you can hint at? Because they've been saying it's going to be amazing. I've talked to some people at ESL. They said it's going to be just out of this world. They've even had certain things they had to cancel because it's going to be so big. So,
well, obviously, I'm not going to or can leak anything, but if NESL was any indication, Toronto is an absolutely amazing place to hold an event. I put the Toronto audience up there with like the French. I think they show up, they cheer for every player, they get really excited, and they sell out. As I understood, I think there's still some seats to be sold, but it's a couple weeks out, so there's, I think, plenty of time. But I think it should be absolutely amazing.
Good. I'm excited, and we're going to see Huck again. Is Huck going to be casting as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So, what about the preparation that you're doing for this event? Are you now that you know the 16 that are going to be there, are you studying up on and watching old maps? How are you preparing for it?
For sure. I'm going to be watching some of their games and that kind of stuff. I'm not like a super... I don't like put together a portfolio of 100 pages of every single one of their stats. And that's not like a laziness kind of thing. It's just more of a style thing. I'm not really big into like firing off 55 stats. I like to analyze the stats that the other guys know really well. It's kind of a fire from your hip kind of style, and I just find that whenever... Well, okay, so here's why. When I get really locked up in specifics, and this is just the way my brain's always worked, I actually have a really tough time with having confidence in saying it unless I'm reading it off a paper. And one of the last things I want to be doing during a broadcast is looking down at a paper and just reading off numbers. I think that's especially outside of my forte. So some guys are really good at that. You know, like Rotterdam, Apollo, they'll just be like, well, 7-time GSL semi-finalist through the years of 2013 to 6. You know, like they can do that shit, and I'll know that stuff, and I'll start to say it. But when I'm on camera, I'll be like, or was it 6? Or no, it was 5. You know, and like I don't like to do that, and then I don't like to read off a piece of paper. So I will study up, brush up. But my regular routine is playing StarCraft about 5 or 6 hours a day, watching those matches, watching a lot of these guys stream. So I'm as familiar as you get with the guys.
All right, Wolf. When you're getting ready to do a cast, I know over there you guys get actually quite a bit of time to see who's going to go up. How do you prepare for these events?
So like for Pro League, for example, the lineups come out on Friday afternoon, usually around like 5 p.m. Korean Standard Time. So as soon as that comes out, wherever I am, I'll usually get notified about it. Sometimes I get emailed, or I'll just see it on Twitter or Team Liquid or whatever. And then I take a look at the players, and if any matchup really sticks out to me, as if there's like some sort of historical significance or some sort of match history between these two, like for example, if it's Life versus Dream, there's some rivalry there, there's some history there. I really look into that and study that pretty hard. Sometimes if I see a matchup that looks like it's going to be really interesting, in particular, like, okay, we've got Zest versus Creator again, that happened again, that, that's coincidental that that's happening again, that they hit each other again, or say, you've got a player like Hush who plays very rarely, he's coming out on a certain map, and I say, oh, well, he didn't hit a Protoss, though. Is there some significance to this? Did they think that Hush would come out here, so they sent another Zerg out? So I think about things like that. But I'm really like Jeff in that I don't really like to write down like super specific stats on any of the players or anything like that, or like try to study exactly what their like exact third base timing is or anything like that, because I kind of generally know the players because I've been commentating them, some of them for like 4 years. So I kind of wing it in that sense, but I definitely look at the bigger picture and take some notes and look at the players that seem like they're going to matter and like the stories that might end up coming out in say Pro League or Star League.
Okay, so with the preparation that you do for that side of the world, with this side of the world, we have WCS Worlds coming up in Toronto. Have you had a chance do you follow the scene still, or do you keep a little behind just because you're so focused over there?
So to be totally honest, I don't really follow the WCS scene that much outside of Korea, just simply because there's a lot of players that I'm not really familiar with, and the level of play just isn't as high, honestly. But I really do like that there is a scene over there, and I do like, I'm happy for the players that are over there doing well. I'm happy to see that like Huck, for example, has transitioned into casting now, because he was always one of my favorite players, one of my favorite North American players. So just to see like that kind of stuff is going on, I hear about it. And whenever there's like a thread on Reddit, like, did you see that crazy game, or what happened, or this cannon rush, and there's a GIF or something, like I definitely look into the games and watch some VODs. I don't watch all the finals and the big stuff, but I definitely don't follow that scene as closely, just simply because time zone wise, it's a bit late for me sometimes, or a bit early, and I've got other things going on. So it's not to say that I don't care about it. It's just like not as important to me. It's not really what I focus on.
Okay. Let's see what else. I think. So with the players coming up, then you wouldn't really have a thought on who you think is going to do well? Because we had already talked about this last week, but
sometimes I'm really surprised. Like to be totally honest, when I look at some of the players that are doing well over there, I'm like, oh wow, that player transitioned really well, or they're still actually quite healthy. Or look at a player like Hydra, who was actually, I thought, one of the Zergs that had a lot of potential on CJ before he ended up leaving and moving overseas. And I'm like, wow, he's doing really well for himself. That's actually quite incredible. But because I don't watch enough, I definitely can't give you like my insight. I could tell you like who I thought would win, but it wouldn't be very like prepared, or I would honestly don't have like a real opinion on it.
Oh, no worries, no worries. All right, so overall, I mean, we do know that WCS Toronto is going to be an extremely fun tournament. It's going to be a lot of excitement. I really am curious to see what they have going, because they keep saying big stuff, exciting things, stuff and things, but we don't know what it's going to be. But we're getting close. Today's the 10th. We have, 16 more days before we find out, so just over 2 weeks. Looking forward to that. Moving on, we're going to now talk about the MSI tournament that's going on at PAX Prime. It's not the hugest, it's not the biggest prize pool. Just give me 1 second to update this. It's not the biggest prize pool, but it does put StarCraft 2 at PAX. It's also going to be alongside, I believe, Heroes of the Storm. And Jeff, with these kind of tournaments, we had IEM at New York Comic Con in 2013. We have, I think since then, this is going to be the first time, StarCraft 2 or a major esports event is going to be at another kind of, convention like this that brings a lot of diverse people from different backgrounds. What benefit does this have to the StarCraft scene and esports as a whole when you have these events co-located?
The potential is pretty nice. It's really attractive for a lot of like the sponsors, why they find themselves at events like this. ESL did like Gamescom for years and years, or IEM, excuse me, but it's mostly because the sponsors are like, we want to be at that convention, because PAX Prime in particular brings in something like want to say 50 or 60,000 people to Seattle, something absolutely insane. PAX East brings in similar numbers as well to Boston. So the idea of those people trickling through, and then they're like, well, if we throw an event, all 60,000 people will come to our booth, and then, you know, that's amazing traction. It doesn't usually work out that way, but it's just really attractive to the people signing the checks. That's why it keeps happening. As far as it being good for StarCraft in particular, I think the best part about this is that a major sponsor did want to throw money into a very expensive event. Like, having an event at PAX Prime is super expensive, and they wanted StarCraft to be a part of it. I think that's the best part of that. And it's not even Legacy of the Void yet, the part where I think we see a lot more of these kind of things, but right now we're in Heart of the Swarm, and still there's sponsors that want to do that. So that's all the good signs. This is not going to be a 1 million person stream. This is not going to be a 25,000 person audience in bleachers. Like, this will not rock people's socks right off their feet, but it's just good news. It's great, and it's nice. And if it brings people to PAX Prime as well, like StarCraft players and fans, that's great too. It's a really fun event. You get to play games, AAA games before they come out. You get to play indie games. You get to hang out with like-minded nerds, and you're in Seattle.
You're a Seattle man, aren't you? Isn't that your hometown?
Yep, from Seattle.
So are you going to PAX Prime?
You know, I usually find myself there for one reason or another, but I don't send myself. Like, the tickets sell out incredibly fast. They're pretty expensive. And then as much as I'd like to say I go to Seattle all the time, I really don't. I see my family only a couple times a year. But if, you know, one of the EG sponsors or somebody is like, Jeff, we'd like you to sit in a booth and yell at people for a day, I'd be like, yeah, sure, you know. And I've done that 5 or 6 times now, a bunch of times for... Kingston? Yeah, I don't know. I just blanked on that. Kingston HyperX, and it's a lot of fun, but it's a convention too. It's stupid exhausting. So it's kind of, for me, it's one of those things like travel. Like, the first 10 times you travel internationally, you're like, oh my god, I get to watch movies and play games. This is so great. Oh my god. And then, you know, that one time where you go where you're like, god, it's 8.5 hours of sitting on a plane and 2.5 hours on both sides of airports. You're like, I don't like this as much. And that's kind of what PAX Prime is for me. Like, it's an amazing event, but I'm totally okay not going.
So how do you like, because I've seen you do a few of the events where you're like playing people that come up to you. How do you like doing the booth experience?
You know, the booth itself is really not that bad. And in particular, I really like meeting fans. Like, I've met a lot of people that, you know, it was like 4 years ago, and they're like, hey, I played a game against you at PAX Prime. It was awesome, you know, and it's like, well, shit, for a minor, you know, inconvenience, if you even want to call it that, for me, I touched on that person's life and they remember it and they have a good memory. Like, if that's all it takes to do that, then awesome. And then, like I said, getting to go out and play those games and hang out in those booths and see them before they come out, really fun. I'm just kind of a, you know, this isn't surprising to anyone, but I'm a giant nerd. So, like, getting brushed up against and being around 1,000 people at every minute and waiting in line for terrible convention food and stuff like that. Like, that whole thing, like I said, totally cool and tolerable for a lot of people, but for me, I've done it so many times that now it's like, if I don't have to, I won't.
Yeah. Wolf, I don't know much about your background as far as before, you know, I know you from Pro League, so
Sure.
Before that, did you ever do the booths, the conventions, that kind of thing?
I've done some stuff like that, not anything like on the scale of what Jeff has done, but I've done like fan meetups and things like that in the past, certain events I've gone to. It's like, for me, always pretty exciting to go to a foreign event, because whenever I go there, I actually get to see fans like face to face. When, you know, say it's even like a Pro League finals or the round of 4, the round of 8, those are the ones you see the most fans come in. There's very few foreign fans in the grand scheme of things. You might meet like 5 people that day. That would be like a day where you meet a ton of foreign fans who are just visiting Korea, or people who live in Korea who made the trek all the way down to the studio because maybe they live in a different city or something. And they're like, oh, I love your show. I like, you know, watching Pro League and etc. Or I always watch you since the GSL days or GSTL. But when I go to foreign events, it's when I actually get to meet the most people. So I guess, like, I'm not, like, a lot of people tell me that when they go to foreign events, they get a bit tired of having to, you know, run into fans all the time. And you know, it's a bit difficult because the events can be quite taxing. You know, you're casting several hours in a day, you're doing panels, or you're doing interviews, you're hosting something, and you want to go to the bathroom and people are signing, you know, interrupting you, asking to sign and stuff like that. I haven't been to a foreign event in a long time, but when I did get to interact with fans, for example, like even in Europe, it was always really cool when I get, you know, someone recognized me and I got to talk to them. So I haven't been to like any Western events in a really long time. The last trips I've gone to were like BWC in China, and then all the WCGs in China, which are all, you know, Chinese fans. So I haven't done any like panel type stuff. I would love to go to PAX, just because like Jeff was saying, I'd love to like actually be able to play new games before they come out. And I've actually never been to a PAX before, so it'd be pretty exciting for me. But just simply because it's so far away and just kind of messes with my schedule, there's just no way I can go.
Yeah, that's understandable. All right, so either way, it's going to be exciting to see StarCraft 2 there. I assume, Jeff, that you haven't been contacted yet about, being involved with that yet?
What, PAX Prime?
Yeah, in the
No.
StarCraft tournament? No, nothing yet?
Nope.
Okay. It's going to be exciting. They're also going to have Heroes of the Storm there, and I like Heroes. I don't know about you guys. Jeff, you play it?
Nope.
No. What about you, Wolf?
I play a lot. I have 2 level 40 accounts. I've got one on the Korean server, and I've got one on the NA server. I play with a ton of StarCraft people. I play with my co-casters, Moonglade and Brandon, quite a lot. We play, recently especially quite a lot with even, Tasis and Artosis. Everyone's getting into it. Everyone's playing it out here. There's not really like a big overlap yet in Korea for like Korean StarCraft pro gamers that are playing. No one's really touching it. But a lot of people are kind of moving between League of Legends and Heroes of the Storm in Korea right now. There's a ton of money being put into it, and a lot of really successful promotions for like PC Bong play and stuff like that. So it's getting pretty big here. So naturally, everyone's kind of playing it and seeing how it goes. But I've been playing a ton. I think it's a lot of fun. I've played like every hero. I actually own way too many for both servers. So
I think. Oh wait, so they don't carry over server
No.
to server. Oh, that sucks.
unfortunately not. Same with Hearthstone cards, but I only play that on one server.
I didn't know that. Wow. All right. So one thing I like about Heroes, and you don't have to dedicate too much to it if you want to play. You don't. Yeah, you have to buy the heroes, but after that, you don't have to learn the builds. Like you do in League of Legends and Dota and all that. You don't have to focus on warding or all those other mechanics. You have all your spells, so you don't need to worry about a build order. You do have to worry about the talents, but I mean, that's pretty easy to just have a talent list right next to you and go through it. You can look those up online. So I like the minimal, the low skill floor to actually get into the game, right? And it all comes down to mechanics after that, just your ability to play your champion hero. That's what we call it, right? But so that's going to be there too. So if you guys like StarCraft and you like Heroes of the Storm, both are going to be at the MSI tournament at PAX Prime, and it's going to be pretty exciting. Going forward, Legacy of the Straw Poll. DreamHack Leipzig is holding a straw poll. I'm going to link it in chat. Basically, you vote on the game there. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, because this was already hashed out on Remax. The reason I bring this up, though, is on the straw poll, it's saying Legacy of the Void, right? And this is DreamHack Leipzig. I can't remember what the date is exactly for it.
January.
January. Okay, so saying that's January, Jeff, do you think that DreamHack has a pretty good inkling that we're going to have a released game by January?
I don't know. I don't. I don't think I would base too much off of that. I think they're making an assumption, and it's not like it's a contract by blood. So if it's like, January rolls around and it's been officially announced, the game comes out, Legacy of the Void comes out in February, and in fact there's no Legacy of the Void in January, I don't think DreamHack will be like, well, guess we're, no StarCraft, they'll just play Heart of the Storm. Like, they're just assuming it's going to be Legacy of the Void.
They could also maybe even play it on the beta if there's like enough hype that people really want to play. If it's not like shut down, because Blizzard every now and then shuts the beta down for like a month before release. In your case that you were talking about, like in February. I'm really excited about this poll because StarCraft's actually doing quite well in it, and there seems to be quite a lot of attention. I know a lot of StarCraft people have been really like tweeting it out, so that's definitely manipulated the votes to a certain extent. But looking at it right now, it's actually third place, ahead of League of Legends, Call of Duty, and it's quite healthy at 13%. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it makes me wonder.
Ones.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if the other communities just haven't caught on to it yet, or what's going on, though, because, we are doing so well in it. So, who knows, maybe a lot of those people are StarCraft fans more than they are League of Legends fans. But, oh, man. Jeff, is your name just In Control?
In Control TV on Twitch.
Take it away. All right, nice. So... either way, guys, get out there and vote. I'm going to link it again. I'll link it just throughout the show. I'll be randomly linking it. But check it out. Vote. StarCraft. I assume that most of you here are for StarCraft, so give us your votes, and hopefully we'll see Legacy of the Void at DreamHack. I think that'll probably be the first major Legacy of the Void tournament. I'm very confident in my belief that we will have a late fall release, maybe early winter for Legacy of the Void. So if that is the case, I think this DreamHack will be the first major event.
Yes. Yeah, I really do think so. I think it'll be BlizzCon. Is either they'll release it around then, if not probably after, because again they've announced that Heart of the Swarm is going to be played at BlizzCon, so it'd be super weird to kill their own excitement like at BlizzCon. Like it wouldn't destroy it, but if everyone's playing Legacy of the Void, that definitely cuts into the hype for both those things.
Exactly.
And I don't think they want to do that.
Exactly. I imagine late November, early December,
Yeah.
possibly. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty fair, especially because that's like holiday season, right? So people are going to be
it's Christmas too.
presents
It's
and
like the biggest time. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, and I mean, we want a lot of sales for this. We want a lot of people jumping in on the game, being like, "All right, you know what, Mom, I want to get back into StarCraft." Bam, there you go, Legacy of the Void.
It also, like, if it's at the end of the year, it sets up really nicely for like a new season of WCS on Legacy of the Void starting in January, and like the whole new year and a new system. It's like
Very good
perfect timing.
Yeah,
So I think that we'll probably see that probably like early December, I would guess.
Yeah, and we were talking about it last episode. It's a perfect send off, I think. BlizzCon, right? The biggest event of the year for StarCraft. Goodbye, Heart of the Swarm. So definitely a good. I think that's almost perfect timing. Yeah. So we'll see what goes on with that. But yeah, anyway, once again, just give it a vote, folks. Moving on, we're going to now talk about Liquid Hero, right? Liquid Hero. What I want to talk about in particular is his performance in GSL versus his performance in Pro League. Wolf, he has only dropped one map in Pro League. Why is he doing so well this format versus GSL? Is it the lack of pressure? Is it the only having to play one game? What's the...
So when I found out this was going to be one of the topics we were talking about, I looked at some of his results, and like his GSL group, he lost to Biel 2-0 and he lost to TY. I think TY just in general has been proven to be better overall in individual leagues in recent times than Hero. Biel is obviously one of the best Zergs in the world. He just beat Party. Spoiler alert for those who missed GSL. He totally wrecked him. And so those are two really tough opponents. The players he's beaten in Pro League in recent times is he beat Yoda just about a day and a half ago. He beat DRG. Those two names are not that impressive to me, but he did beat those players. He also barely beat Yoda. Like, I don't know if you guys caught that game, but it was a really close game where Hero had some shaky moments where he could have actually lost it just by messing up a fight. I feel like Hero tries a lot of really specific gimmicky builds, sometimes in both the GSL in a best of 3 series and in a best of 1. But if it's a best of 1, you have a lot more time to prepare for it. You're preparing for one map and that one strategy, and so that kind of strategy has a lot better chance of working. I also feel like Hero does insanely well overseas because he gets like a lot of energy from his fans, and he's on an international team, right? And he's got tons of international fans. He's one of the big favorite players in the world, and has a lot of success over at DreamHacks, for example. But in Korea, I think there's a lot of pressure on him because it's like, yeah, well, you won. A lot of Korean fans are really quite harsh on players that travel a lot. Like, oh yeah, you won against all those foreigners over there and the Koreans that travel a lot, and that's all good, but can you beat the real players here? And I feel like a lot of fans put a lot of pressure on him, and I think that pressure definitely affects his Code S performance. He seems to be oftentimes like really, really nervous when he's in the booth, even in Pro League. Even if he's winning a game, you could see he's like really stressed. He's like, I gotta make sure I don't screw this up. So I feel like just from my personal interactions with him, I think he has like this immense amount of pressure, sometimes like self-generated, to do well. And in the best of 1, when you've got like so much preparation for this one game on this one map, when you're not worried about individual leagues because you've been knocked out of them earlier, it's a lot easier to do well. And just his recent results in Pro League in very recent times were not that impressive. His most impressive was beating SOS, which I think he did, if I think back to that game, with like some crazy DT build or something. So, it's like, it's impressive that he's able to win against this many players, but at the same time, I'm less impressed by how he does it, and like the players that he beat, because SOS is also not in tip-top form right now. He did very well in the GSL, but in Star League and in Pro League, he's not as consistent as he once was. Like, he's not even like on Zest's level, or definitely not on the level of Hero or Partying.
Right.
So, I mean, that's my take on it, just from knowing Hero. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with the guy. I've traveled to events with him. I've seen, his personality. He's a very good player. He works really really hard, even from his old days on OGS. But definitely a very emotional guy, and I think the pressure is a little bit less when you're one guy out of four who's playing just one single game on one map in Pro League.
Yeah.
So,
We've seen him be he's a very emotional person. We've seen after his defeats the past couple of years, he's always very hard on himself. He goes right to Twitter to, say apologies to his fans and all that. And Jeff, what do you think are Hero's strengths, and what do you think he could do to come back from a funk, kind of rise up again, maybe even, make himself a contender in future GSL seasons?
It's hard to say. I felt like, when we were having a lot more events each month, I had a better grasp of where he's at and how he's playing. It's well known he's a super emotional guy. StarCraft's in a bit of flux right now. Like, it's really higher. You don't see a lot of players getting signed. It's more like, the ones that are on teams. What people don't really know behind the scenes as well is their salaries are getting cut a little bit, especially on these bigger teams that are signing, Dota squads, CSGO squads, that kind of thing. So that all plays a part. I think it's absolutely it's huge that he's in Korea, but I also think there's analysis to be drawn too on, like, he's doing really well in Pro League, which is best of one, and in GSL where it's longer series, I think Protoss players in general have a tougher time. It's almost always been like the top-notch Protoss players or some of the really hungry young guys are the ones that do fairly well in that format, whereas in general, and I'm speaking super in general, so it's like there's going to be examples up to wazoo that put me down, but I'm just saying in general, Protoss players want shorter series because they can surprise people with a cheese or with a really abrupt timing attack, whereas if that gets calibrated and figured out, they're easier to deal with, as opposed to Terran and Zerg, which can more rely on really generic, cookie-cutter, open-ended builds that are just generally good against their opponent.
Yep.
Whereas Protoss, once they do that, they become pretty figured out and they can be smote quite hard. So I think he suffers from that a little bit, but like I said, this is all just me speculating and speaking in super generalities, because to be honest, you don't hear about Hero that much outside of Korea. It is GSL and Pro League, and then if it's not those two things, it's not much else. And I think that's kind of the WCS era. Like, if you're doing really well in WCS, everyone knows your name. You're kind of a household name. But if you're not, and you're not in Korea, then it's, do you stream? Did you take a picture of your penis and that made its way online? If none of these things are a check mark or something like that, then it's tough to get visibility on that player.
Would those be called cock shots?
They're called dick pics. Is what people say.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's the official term, right? Yeah, I mean, I think Jeff raises some excellent points. A lot of players right now are in such a hard place because of the new WCS system where they had to come back to Korea. And I'm really impressed to see players like MMA. When I saw MMA was going to return to Korea, I honestly thought, well, this guy's going to have a really hard time, and he might flub in Code A for a while and not, and maybe drop out of Challenger and the SSL, and then be one of these mid-tier players that comes out for a Pro League team at the time when he wasn't on one. But I thought, maybe he'll join one and come out every now and then, just like Hero, right? Is no longer a dominant force because he's returned to this region. But I'm glad to see players like MMA are doing really, really well. You've got players like Jockji who've been around but haven't returned to relevancy yet in Korea. It's a really hard time for everybody, because if you're like you're saying, Jeff, when these other teams are signing other players from other games, you're starting to wonder, oh, am I going to get re-signed? Am I going to get that contract again? Am I going to have a place in a few months? If I don't win this, or they're just going to be like, well, we got the other guys instead of you because you actually just dropped out of Code A and you're not on TV, so we can't put sponsors on your jacket and have you do well for us because you're not playing in anything else. So it's definitely a really stressful time for a lot of players. You see a lot of players retiring, and I can imagine that after the huge swell of Legacy of the Void starting early on, probably next year, I think that probably mid next year there will be another big swell of retiring players, and I feel like maybe even towards the end of this year we'll probably see a lot of StarCraft 2 players that are on Kespa teams have a resurgence back to Brood War, because that's what they love and that's what they've been doing. We've already seen a little bit of that in Korea, and I think that we're going to see more of that in the coming future as well.
All right. Two thoughts on Korean scene before we move on. First is, do you know anyone that's practicing Legacy of the Void pretty heavily? I mean, we do see the Olimoli League, people playing in that, but do you know of anyone that doesn't really participate in that, but has been trying to, keep on top of the meta for when that comes out?
So I've talked to a lot of people about this. Nobody's really playing. Um, like it's like those Alimo League people. Like the old Axiom guys. Like those guys play a lot. They haven't found a lot of success towards the end of Heart of the Swarm, unfortunately for them. They do participate in a lot of qualifiers. Code qualifiers, for example, Star League qualifiers. But they don't have GSTL anymore. They're not in Pro League currently. For them, it's like they're struggling to find somewhere to actually show their play and show their skills. So I know those guys are playing a lot. I think they're playing the most. No Castle players are playing. I doubt very highly that they're even allowed to play, except maybe in like some free time and mess around. I know that everyone has tried it, right? But besides the streamers you see on Twitch, there's not like a secret group of like players that like retired or like are in the back like I'm gonna make my comeback in Legacy.
There's no reason to. If you're an active pro gamer, playing a known closed beta this far out from there's not even a release date, and Blizzard's not the kind of company like, surprise, it's in 2 weeks. Like, they're not going to do that. Playing a game that's going to drastically change, it's on maps that are not relevant to what you're even practicing. Like, nothing about it has any kind of benefit at all except for that Olim League and stuff like that. Nah, you're going to spend minimal time there. That's like warm-ups. That is, let's touch into it to see, because I'm interested. It's something different from HOTS, so sure, I'm going to spend some time there, but nobody's practicing it.
Yeah. I mean, we don't actually see that much interest in players even playing it on stream anymore. I feel like the biggest issue with the beta right now is there's no rank system, so you can't prove yourself. And every time I log in, I get some variance of skill between like what I feel like is probably like gold to diamond league at best, unless I hit like a pro. Like if I like run into Rotterdam or something, I'm like, oh, okay, well this is like the best I'm gonna find. I feel like most people I play against, I can pretty much just screw around and do whatever I want, and I'm still gonna win. Like, and I'm not even that high level of a player at all, especially not these days. So there's no ranking system. The MMR doesn't seem like it is even a thing. So pros don't even like, if you go in ladder as a pro right now trying to practice that game, you're just like, you could hit like some Silver League guy who went to BlizzCon and got a key. So it's so small. There's no ranked ladder. So unless you really just want to have fun with it, it's just not a good thing to do as a pro. Also, it's so different. It's like when you play Wings of Liberty to Heart of the Swarm, you're like, okay, there's some new units, but mechanically this is pretty much the same. Whereas in Legacy of the Void, the economy is like totally different and upside down. You have different starting workers, different timings. Bases have different mineral patches and things like that. So if you ended up practicing that hardcore, it could actually mess with your mechanics and your brain for like going back to Heart of the Swarm.
Yeah, I can understand that. Not understand it from a pro perspective, but I do, jumping between the two, you can be like, why am I trying to build a supply depot with my first SCV in Heart of the Swarm? That doesn't work. You gotta wait for Legacy of the Void for that. But anyway, yeah, completely agree with that. So getting back to Hero though, I think we summed it up pretty good why, he performs better in Pro League than he does in GSL. We'll see what comes from him in the future. There's still a lot of time, and there's still a whole new game on the horizon for people to come back with, and perhaps that'll be his time. They're going for a very control-focused game. Here has been known in the past for his control, so I think that we'll see what comes from him. And shout out to Gemini. You're welcome for covering this today. Moving forward, something just came out. I haven't had a chance to fully read it, but SOC is now moving on to Heroes of the Storm. Effectively, XMG is now shutting down their team XMG. It's no more. They're also, it seems like, pulling out of Home Story Cup in Germany. I think they're pulling, or they're going to be a part of DreamHack, but they are pulling out of...
they're not sponsoring Home Story Cup anymore. That's been around for a while. I think even the last Home Story Cup wasn't sponsored by them, or if not, then whoops, I slipped. But yeah, it was happening for a while.
Okay.
They are they're working closely with and are going to be one of the sponsors for DreamHack Germany, Leipzig, and they want StarCraft there. Their post says that they're funny guys. I know the XMG guys really well. Chris is a friend of mine. I have a lot of his dollars in my pocket from poker. He's like the post itself is like, should we have StarCraft there? And they're like, well, you know what? Screw it, we will. I promise you, it's in my heart. Like, it's like it reads as if you're talking to him, so it's kind of funny. But then as far as like Zake and Hasuab's announced his retirement, he is not XMG. He was Mouse Sports, but like these German players, those two are inseparable. They're playing a lot of heroes. Those guys and Todd, they were all playing. I don't think Todd's playing with them, but there's these German players who are playing heroes together. And they actually have a heroes team, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of the, at least the last time I talked to them, was one of the best in Europe. Unsurprisingly so, because these guys are all, you know, former top-notch European pro gamers in Warcraft and Starcraft and blah blah blah. So this is like it's not goodbye. It's see you later. Like we're going to be seeing a lot of them. They're still playing Blizzard games. But it's that time, like Zake, Haswab, some of these guys, they're getting, you know, mid to upper 20s. It's time to start paying bills. It's time to start moving out of your parents' houses and getting real life jobs. And StarCraft, not to be a Debbie Downer, but unfortunately right now, like there's fewer and fewer people that are making living wages off of StarCraft, and a lot of those people that are casters, and they're you know, like even Mr. Bitter has gone on to work for Red Bull. Like there's examples of that. Like people are Frodan is now an in studio caster and host. Like these guys are becoming, you know, different jobs, and right now the ones that are hiring are your Hearthstones, your Heroes, your CS:GO, Dota, LoL, like that kind of stuff. A lot of people feel like betrayed, sad by that, but it's actually just kind of a gaming thing. Like the more sad and weird and tragic thing would be if guys held on desperately to StarCraft or whatever game it was to the point where they're not getting paid, and then they're just like, well, now I'm homeless, but I've got great Wi-Fi at McDonald's, so I should be able to stream a game or two. And it's like, you know, like, take care of yourself, man. So
do you think
it happens?
It's hurting the scene as a whole, the StarCraft scene, when we overreact to people leaving? You know,
I don't know. Like questions like that don't super like they're not really that important to me, because people are going to react, and like nobody should be standing on top of a pillar like shouting down at the masses like, calm your tits, like this is natural, it's normal, like that's even more lunatic, you know, like that's crazy. So if people do have a big reaction, cool, that means that Sake and Hasuabs and these other guys were loved. And it means these people are passionate about StarCraft still, and they're feeling bad that people are moving on. And I think that's a natural progression. It's good. If the day ever came where I had to announce that I've been called in and signed to a professional Warhammer team, and I'm moving to Alaska to train in Arctic conditions, because that's how we play for some reason or another, I hope there's a big reaction. I want people to be sad. I don't think it hurts the scene. I think it's just natural and good. The only way it would hurt the scene is the people that like glob onto that and then go around to different channels and are like, well, such and such just retired, motherfuckers. Game's dead. Fuck you all. It's like, that's not constructive. That doesn't help. If some people find it funny, cool. But if they're obsessive about it and they do these things, actually, like I've talked to a few people who are the sponsors and like are the people that run teams and stuff like that, and the dead game meme thing like actually became a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Obviously the game's not dead, but it does look unattractive when a lot of people are harping on that and super negative. So reacting to someone retiring, is that bad? No. Globbing onto it, obsessing, running around and telling everyone about it as if it's the end of the world, yeah, that's pretty bad. And that's true for anything at all. Like, if someone dies, feel fucking sad and terrible. But if it's a year and a half later and you're emaciated and drunk and at the bottom of a stairwell, is that good? No, it's not. It's really bad.
Yeah. I agree with you like pretty much 100%. I'm actually gonna link in the like chat this quote from like Nazgul, because he was the one who actually posted this article about the dead game effect. And then basically he was saying like I'm just gonna read like the last quote there is. I don't quite think everyone realizes that negative atmosphere around your game like that is actually doing legitimate damage. It demotivates people from wanting to be a part of your scene, and I don't think people realize how severe that is. It's definitely like that whole dead game idea that you see on Reddit or you see on Twitter. And even casters joke about it a lot, you know, myself included. this idea of a dead game and it's over, but there's still like a lot of people that watch this game, and my feeling is if you love the game, you're gonna watch it, right? And there's no reason to try to spread negativity because you're upset that like a game is bigger than yours, because like, tennis isn't as big as American football, but like if you like tennis, you like tennis. So why try to be like just spread the idea that tennis just isn't that big? If you do like it, why not just instead just continue to watch it and support it? I think that negativity just really brings everybody down, and I really don't like when say someone retires or moves on. I see a lot of comments that are like, well, he just wasn't that good anyways. I guess it was about time. That shit just drives me crazy. I'm like, this guy's whole life was this, and now he's trying to move on to somewhere else. I mean, it goes through casters that moved into other scenes, players that moved into other scenes, players that became casters. People like, well, he was actually just pretty shit, so I'm glad he became a caster so he can make some money. I'm like, well, actually, I am glad he became a caster because he needs to make money, and he's dedicated his life to this. To be a pro gamer takes so much time and dedication, and people are so negative towards these people who actually move into other jobs and move on to other roles in their lives because time moves forward. People get older, people get families, people get more responsibilities, and you can't be like the 19-year-old guy like in the middle of school playing games and just being really good at it naturally forever. That doesn't last forever, and people have to move on, and I really just don't like how much negativity is around that. I feel like some of the negativity actually comes from like people who haven't been in the StarCraft scene for that long. Like they came in at its like highest peak, and they were like, "This is it! I found my esport." Like it's like they thought like StarCraft was esports and there wasn't anything else. And then they look and they see League of Legends, and they're like, "Oh, the game that I suddenly got into in the middle of it all, and jumped into and spent all my time, and that wasn't the biggest." And I'm really upset about it. But I feel like most people who were in StarCraft since like the beta of StarCraft and have come through kind of come to understand how the game has been and grown and shrank, and players come and go, and personalities come and go, and just the negativity is like, it's just so frustrating to me, and I really wish it would, if it could like somehow go away. It probably won't, but I guess
it's gotten a lot better. It's been worse. It's been a lot worse than this.
It has gotten better. One thing I've wondered is if in the subreddit, because that's where a lot of it happens. I've always wondered if there's some certain degree of censoring that could go on. And I'm not talking about right. I know
censoring.
It just kind of in a way that encourages people to like, hey, stop that. You're not adding anything. You're not helping, and that hurts us.
They would tell you that Reddit has built-in natural censorship. If the comment's not liked, it'll be downvoted. That's what they always say. It's fine. It really is. Like I didn't mean for us to become harping on this too much, because there's definitely been worse times. Like Wings Liberty was towards the end an absolute shit game, and a lot of people were all over the negative hype train. Going into HOTS, there was this huge spike of excitement and fervor, and the viewership was really well. And then it started to cool off a little bit, as it always does, and it came back. It seems to be a little bit more prevalent around international periods of time. I'm like a theorist / documentarist, if that's not a word.
Documentarian?
Anyways,
something like that? I don't know.
Some shit like that. I don't know. Of this phenomena that's like a seasonal depression that hits StarCraft. Every time Dota raises like $10 or $13 million for their one event, it becomes super common to hate on StarCraft. That actually, this last international, it started to taper off there as well, because like Dota collectively had enough mercy not to put like another bullet into the head of the horse of StarCraft, like they're going after LoL and stuff like that. But it's actually fine, and like I'm pretty proud of the StarCraft 2 Reddit lately. It's been pretty positive. I've managed a whole like 10 posts without someone just going absolute fucking ham on me, which is really nice as well. And I think we're in a, to finish off this discussion, we're in a good spot. Like, yes, viewership is a lot lower than it's ever been, and I think that's also a natural progression for a game like StarCraft. But WCS is in a better place than it's ever been. I think even Blizzard would tell you when it came out, it was like a great destroyer. It was like this weird virus released by Blizzard itself that just crushed competition and destroyed a lot of StarCraft. But now it's in a really good place where the events are still getting the same numbers, and it's a lot more foreigners. The Koreans are thriving. Like, it's in a good spot. And we got Legacy of the Void on the horizon, which is, as we saw when the beta first came out, We had streamers that were playing to 10,000 people. Do I think that's going to be the norm for months on end? Probably not, but it will be a shot in the arm when Legacy of the Void comes out. There's going to be more interest. There's going to be more tournaments, more sponsors. Players will get signed, and it'll be nice. So I think we have a lot to look forward to and a lot to be excited about.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great way to end that segment. So one thing I wanted to discuss. So we talked about the Team XMG dissolving. So I mean they're still going to be around. You said you knew them, Jeff. So they're still continuing with esports, right? They're still maintaining a connection with the community.
What do you mean?
Like despite the team dissolving, they're still going to be involved in esports.
Who, XMG?
Yeah.
Yeah, they make a gaming laptop. This is their main target audience. I just think, and they have a passion for StarCraft. They said that in their post too. Like they're going to do stuff with StarCraft. So if they can help get StarCraft 2 to a DreamHack, awesome. Are they going to sponsor players? Not in Heart of the Swarm. I would bet my. Not much. I wouldn't bet much on it. I would bet like like
any figures
or. No models. Not that much. But it's a good bet that they won't sponsor anybody in Heart of the Swarm. When Legacy of the Void rolls around, will they sponsor people? Maybe. It depends. Who knows what 2016 looks like in terms of esports, but I hope so. I hope Legacy of the Void has a big hype, a big release, and I hope a lot of people come back and a lot of people enjoy it.
All right. That sounds good to me. Guys, we're going to now talk about a little more selfish subject, and this is going to be about the late game. One thing I wanted to do was address a lot of your criticisms and all that stuff. I made a post about it. It's on Team Liquid. You can check it out under the general thread. But first I wanted to say huge thank you to everyone who took time to post. There were like 180 posts, and I'd say most of them weren't like, children of other posts. Like they were your own individual big long paragraphs. And I really appreciated that time and effort that you guys took to give feedback. In the post, I'll just summarize, what I said in there, but you can go read the long-winded thing. But, talking about my over-explanations and disclaimers, forced off-topic discussions, panelists that can't or don't participate properly involving my guests, killing Kamika-chan, too many memes, skipping topics, my broadcast section, and the mixed feelings on length, liking a long show, not liking a long show, and then my preparation. The preparation one I cover pretty well in the thread, so you can check that out. So first thing, I know one thing that you're all wondering, where's Steven? Steven will be coming on the show. Before the show, I talked to Steven, I said, hey, here are the topics. Is there anything on here that you have an opinion about, or anything that you think you could talk at length about? Steven said no. I said, cool. Steven's not on the show. That's how it's going to work. So he's still a co-host, but, I'm not going to force him to sit here. And not that I could ever force him, he's always come of his own volition, but I'm not going to have him on here and just have him, sit there and do nothing, when he could be, streaming and, memeing it up. So Steven is still a part of the show. He's still going to be on this. As far as everything else, I won't go through, line by line, but I'm aware of your criticisms, and I thank you all for those, and you will see these changes come as we move forward. We have Jeff on. Jeff's someone that I've wanted to work with for a while. I've asked him about his show previously, and just so happened that things worked out now, and I get to have him here. I'm excited to have him weekly. I know a lot of you guys are, so thank you for the definitely positive reaction to having him come on. As far as Kamika-chan goes, it's been fun.
I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about.
You can't see?
Kamika-chan?
You can't see, but Kamika-chan's the waifu pillow.
Oh, there it is. I'm watching the stream.
So Kamika-chan is, per your request.
Where's where you put it in? I don't know.
What?
Where's the hole?
It's at the bottom.
Wow, you put it in that whole thing, huh?
Yeah. So
I'm like behind. I'm about to see this in a few seconds. So
that's the end of Kamika-chan, folks. She's gone.
Do you have sex with that pillow?
Like on occasion. No. It was. I got the body pillow with I got a bed set for Christmas, and the body pillow came with it. And as soon as I've never had a body pillow
What?
Yeah.
Oh, the pillow, but not the pillowcase.
Yeah, so I got the pillow.
Oh God. Okay.
And,
I pictured you got this bed
no,
set,
man.
and that's part of the
Jesus.
set, and I'm like, well, shit.
No, it's all plaid and stuff. But no, I got a bed set and I got a new pillow. And I've never had a body pillow. I didn't know what to do with it. But the first thing I thought was, I'm not going to sleep with this, but I need a waifu pillow cover. And that's what I got. And it just kind of went out of control, a little too cringe. So Kamika-chan's gone, folks. There you go. Now, as you can see, promises kept. I listened to your criticism and I reacted.
Did people actually complain about your
Yes.
That's so fucking weird. People complain about that.
All right.
All right. So as far as everything else goes, guys, I want to talk about, we are expanding into other things. Today we have Heyoka coming on from Dota. We're going to talk about Dota DreamHack this weekend. I like esports, right? It's as corny as it sounds. I feel like this is where I belong, right? Like way back when I first got into IT, I remember first getting behind like server racks when I actually knew what to do. And there's like this contrast feeling of the really ice cool air because you got to keep it cool in there. But then you're standing right behind the machine and you've got like the warm air blowing on you and you just get goosebumps and you can smell the static. And I remember being in there and working on my console and just thinking like, this is where I fucking belong. It's like an orgasm when you finish setting up a server and a bunch of networks and then you turn it on and everything works. It's amazing.
That is the nerdiest example I've ever heard.
Right?
Someone explain why they like something.
And then I got into esports, and man, I think there's nothing better. Like that feeling was topped work-wise by going to an event, doing interviews and articles and just the emotionally draining experience of being at a StarCraft event is absolutely insane. And as I've been in the scene, I've started to get into other esports. I like League of Legends. I have a fantasy League of Legends league. I lost by 6 points last week, and I'm very upset about that. But nonetheless, I enjoy it. I like the other esports, so we're going to cover it on this show. But I am going to give due diligence to StarCraft. I give preference to StarCraft. I will never, ever, ever stop making consistent StarCraft 2 content. I promise you that. StarCraft will always be the first thing we talk about on the show. It will be the thing that we contribute the most to, and we will have at least an hour dedicated to StarCraft. I'll never rush a StarCraft topic just to get away from it. So, calm your tits. Calm your tits. Calm your tits. Is that how we do it, Jeff?
Which is not necessarily speaking out to women. Men have tits as well.
Yes. We're not being sexist here. We are an equal opportunity talk show. So
calm all of the tits.
Yes.
Every one of them.
All the tits. Calm the
Even
dicks.
birds. They can be calm too.
So I just wanted to address that and let you know that that's happening. So that also allows us to keep Destiny on because he's taken a liking to League of Legends lately, and also we get to have Richard Lewis on. We can have Red Eye on more often. We can have all the Counter-Strike people, League of Legends, all that stuff. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be good. You're still going to get your StarCraft 2 content. I promise you that. And if you ever kind of feel that things are going awry, leave a comment. I always read them. I always follow your feedback. I think really that was the brunt of it. Jeff has come on. Steven's going to, come on when, Steven actually has something to say. And we're going to continue on with the show. Jeff, do you have any thoughts, I guess, on the just the changing of the format, that we're adding new games, you being here, just anything?
I think it was a really good move to include me. I think that was one of the smartest things you've ever done. I'm amazing. No, just kidding. I actually, it's pretty obvious that this harkens back to Chanman's shows that he was doing, and I really enjoyed those. I really like the idea of covering all of esports. A lot of people maybe not a lot, but some people might remember even around the turn of the year, I was talking about hosting my own show and having content and stuff like that. That's actually the super major big project that's still possibly in the works. There's like billions of lawyers and dollars being worked on right now, but hopefully I'll get to do that as well. But I think covering all of esports is great. And, I like the idea of StarCraft being the main focus, obviously, but not leaving out the fact that a lot of our StarCraft people have sprouted wings. Even young bearded Proxy Wolf now does World of Tanks. I mean, we got Richard Lewis set loose upon the LoL world. He's actually playing CSGO, which shows that he is capable of both journalism and playing the game he's covering. And then there's other great personalities as well too. And I also think that secretly we should all acknowledge that this is your way of keeping Steven on the show. And I think that was a smart move as well. If we just did StarCraft, we'd have to kick Steven from the show, and he wouldn't get that dank late game check in the mail every month for $10 million or esports dollars. So I think this is a big deal.
Exactly. And that you reminded me of one thing, and then I forgot it. Son of a bitch.
Nice.
Right. What is your most expensive figure for Warhammer? I've never bought a Warhammer figure.
Bro. So, you can just... Well, the one that I had all over my Twitter, the big winged one that I played with this last weekend, that model is... It was $450, and then once it was painted and assembled, it probably came out to around $1,000.
Good.
But the Warlord Titan, the one that I've been obsessing over that I don't have yet but will get, I actually did a 24-hour stream to raise money so that my wife wouldn't kill me, because spending the amount of money it would cost on a model is just not okay. It's $2,000, and once that's assembled and painted, that'll be $3,250, $3,500.
Jesus. All right, so
it's a small car.
At a Warhammer thing, are you allowed to take a piece of cardboard and just draw the character on it and then set that down and be like, there you go, that's my bargain Dominator thingy?
You're absolutely not. But there is customization modeling in Warhammer 40,000. So there are people who, like, for instance, let's say there's a really cool, alien model. Or not even model, but action figure. If they put that on the appropriate size base and they model it close enough to the dimensions of what they're trying to have it, proxy as, then that's mostly tolerated.
Okay.
That's mostly okay. I myself... Warhammer?
Yeah, that game just seems